the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Udyoga Parva. Section 141, Bhagavatyana Parva. Karna said, "Without doubt, O Kesava, thou hast said these words from thy love, affection and friendship for me, as also in consequence of thy desire of doing me good, O thou of Vrishni's race. I know all that thou hast said unto me. Morally, I am the son of Pandu, as also in consequence of the injunctions of the scriptures, as thou, O Krishna, thinkest. My mother, while a maiden, bore me in her womb, O Janardana, through her connection with Surya. And at the command of Surya himself, she abandoned me as soon as I was born. Even thus, O Krishna, I came into the world. Morally, therefore, I am the son of Pandu. Kunti, however, abandoned me without thinking of my welfare. The Suta Adhiratha, as soon as he beheld me, took me to his home, and from her affection for me, Radha's breasts were filled with milk that very day, and she, O Madhava, cleansed my urine and evacuations. How can one like us, conversant with duties and ever engaged in listening to scriptures, deprive her of her pinda? So also Adhiratha of the Suta class regarded me as a son, and I too, from affection, always regard him as my father. O Madhava, that Adhiratha, O Janardana, from parental affection caused all the rites of infancy to be performed on my person, according to the rules prescribed in the scriptures. It is that Adhiratha again who caused the name Vasyusena to be bestowed upon me by the Brahmanas. When also I attained to youth, I married wives according to his selections. Through them have been born my sons and grandsons. O Janardana, my heart also, O Krishna, and all the bonds of affection and love are fixed on them. From joy or fear, O Govinda, I cannot venture to destroy those bonds even for the sake of the whole earth or heaps of gold. In consequence also of my connection with Duryodhana of Dhritarashtra's race, I have, O Krishna, enjoyed sovereignty for 13 years without a thorn on my side. I have performed many sacrifices, always however in connection with persons of the Suta tribe. All my family rites and marriage rites have been performed with the Sutas. Obtaining me, O Krishna, Duryodhana hath, O thou of Vishnu's race, made this preparation for an armed encounter and provoked hostilities with the sons of Pandu. And it is for this, Achyuta, that in the battle that will ensue, I, O Krishna, have been chosen as the great antagonist of Arjuna to advance against him in single combat. For the sake of death or the ties of blood or fear, or temptation, I cannot venture, O Janardana, to behave falsely towards the intelligent son of Dhritarashtra. If I do not now engage in a single combat with Arjuna, this will, O Hrishiksa, be inglorious for both myself and Partha. Without doubt, O slayer of Madhu, thou hast told me all this for doing me good. The Pandavas also, obedient as they are to thee, will without doubt do all that thou hast said. Thou must however conceal this our discourse for the present, O slayer of Madhu. Therein lies our benefit, I think, O delighter of all the Yadavas. If King Yudhishthira of virtuous soul and well-controlled senses cometh to know me as the firstborn son of Kunti, he will never accept the kingdom. If again, O slayer of Madhu, this mighty and swelling empire becometh mine, I shall, O repressor of foes, certainly make it over to Duryodhana only. Let Yudhishthira of virtuous soul become king forever. He that hath Hrishiksa for his guide, and Dhananjaya and that mighty warrior Bhima for his combatants, as also Nakula and Sahadeva and the sons of Draupadi, is fit, O Madhava, to rule over the whole earth. Dhrishtadyumna, the prince of the Panchalas, that mighty warriors Satyaki, Uttamanjas, Yudhamanyu, the prince of Somakas who is devoted to truth, the ruler of the Chedis, Chekitna, the invincible Sikhundin, the Kekaya brothers, all of the hue of Indragopika insects, Bhimsena's uncle Kuntiboja of high soul and possessed of steeds endued with the colors of the rainbow, the mighty warrior Sainajit, Sanka the son of Virata and thyself O Janardana, like an ocean, great is this assemblage. O Krishna, of Kshatriyas that hath been made by Yudhishthira. This blazing kingdom, celebrated among all the kings of the earth is already won by Yudhishthira. O thou of Vishnu's race, a great sacrifice of arms is about to be celebrated by Dhritarashtra's son. Thou O Janardana, wilt be the Upadrashtri of that sacrifice. The office of Adhyayu also O Krishna, in that sacrifice will be thine. The ape-bannered Vibhatsu accoutred in mail will be the hotry, his bow Gandiva will be the sacrificial ladle and the prowess of the warriors will be the clarified butter that is to be consumed. The weapons called Indra, Pasupata, Brahma and Stunakana, applied by Arjuna will O Madhava, be the mantras of that sacrifice. Resembling his father or perhaps excelling him in prowess, Subhadra's son Abhimanyu will be the chief Vedic hymn to be chanted. That destroyer of elephant ranks, that utterer of fierce roars in battle, that tiger among men, the exceedingly mighty Bhima will be the Udgatri and Prastotri in this sacrifice. King Yudhishthira of virtuous soul, ever engaged in Yapa and Homa, will himself be the Brahma of that sacrifice. The sounds of conches, tabors and drums, and the leonine roaring rising high in the welkin, will be the calls upon the invited to eat. The two sons of Madri, Nakula and Sahadeva, of great fame and prowess, will be the slayers of the sacrificial animals. Rows of bright cars furnished with standards of variegated hue will O Govinda, be stakes for tying the animals O Janardana in this sacrifice. Barbed arrows and nalikas, and long shafts and arrows with heads like calf's tooth will play the part of spoons wherewith to distribute the soma juice, while tomaras will be the vessels of soma and bos will be pavitras. The swords will be kapalas, the heads of slain warriors the purodasas and the blood of warriors the clarified butter O Krishna in this sacrifice. The lances and bright maces of the warriors will be pokers for stirring the sacrificial fire and the corner stakes for keeping the firewood from falling down. The disciples of Drona and Kripa, the son of Saradvat will be the Sadasyas assisting priests. The arrows shot by the wielder of Gandiva and by other mighty warriors and by Drona and Drona's son will play the part of ladles for distributing the soma. Satyaki will discharge the duties of the chief assistant of the Adhyayu. Of this sacrifice, Dhritarashtra's son will be installed as the performer, while this vast army will be his wife. O thou of mighty arms, when the nocturnal rites of sacrifice will begin, the mighty Gatotkoka will play the part of the slayer of devoted victims. The mighty Dhrishtadyumna, who sprang into life from the sacrificial fire, having for its mouth the rites celebrated with mantras will O Krishna, be the dakshina of that sacrifice. For those harsh words O Krishna, that I said before unto the sons of Pandu for the gratification of Dhritarashtra's son, for that wicked conduct of mine, I am consumed with repentance. When O Krishna, thou wilt behold me slain by Arjuna, then will the punachiti of this sacrifice commence, when the second son of Pandu will drink the blood of the loudly roaring Dusasana, then will the soma drinking of this sacrifice have taken place. When the two princes of Panchala, Dhrishtadyumna and Sikhandi, will overthrow Drona and Bhishma, then O Janardana, will this sacrifice be suspended for an interval. When mighty Bhimasena will slay Duryodhana, then O Madhava, will this sacrifice of Dhritarashtra's son be concluded. When the wives of Dhritarashtra's sons and grandsons assembled together, deprived O Kesava, of their husband and sons and without protectors, will indulge in lamentations with Gandhari in their midst, on the field of battle haunted by dogs and vultures and other carnivorous birds, then O Janardana, will the final bath of this sacrifice take place. I pray to thee O bull of the Kshatriya race, let not the Kshatriyas, old in learning and old in years, perish miserably, O Janardana, for thy sake. O let this swelling host of Kshatriyas perish by means of weapons on that most sacred of all spots in the three worlds, viz. Kurukshetra. O Kesava, O thou of eyes like lotus leaves, accomplish on this spot what thou hast in thy mind, so that, O thou of Vrishni's race, the whole Kshatriya order may attain to heaven. As long, O Janardana, as the hills and the rivers will last, so long will the fame of these achievements last. The Brahmanas will recite this great war of the Bharatas. The fame, O thou of Vrishni's race, that they achieve in battles is the wealth that Kshatriya Sono Kesava, bring Kunti's son Arjuna before me for battle, keeping forever this our discourse a secret, O chastiser of force. Thus ends the 141st section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 142, Bhagavatyana Parva. Sanjaya said, hearing these words of Karna, Kesava, that slayer of hostile heroes, spoke unto him these words smilingly, do not the means of winning an empire recommend themselves to thee, O Karna? Wishest thou not to rule over the whole earth given by me to thee? The victory of the Pandavas therefore is very certain. There seems to be no doubt in this. The triumphal banner of Pandu's son, with the fierce ape on it, seems to be already set up. The divine artificer Bhaumana hath applied such celestial illusion in its construction that it standeth high, displayed like Indra's banner. Various celestial creatures of terrific shape, indicating victory, are seen on that standard. Extending for a yojana upwards and all around, that beautiful standard of Arjuna, resembling fire in radiance, is never, O Karna, when set up, obstructed by hills or trees. When thou wilt behold in battle Arjuna on his car drawn by white steeds and driven by Krishna, applying Indra, Agneya and Mayuta weapons, and when thou wilt hear the twang of Gandiva piercing the welkin like the very thunder, then all signs of the Krita, the Treta, and the Dwapara ages will disappear, but, instead Kali embodied will be present. When thou wilt behold in battle Kunti's son, invincible Yudhishthira, devoted to Tapa and Homa and resembling the very sun in brilliance, protecting his own mighty army and burning the army of his foes, then all signs of the Krita, the Treta, and the Dwapara ages will disappear. When thou wilt behold in battle the mighty Bhimasena dancing, after having quaffed the blood of Dusasana, like a fierce elephant with rent temples after having killed a mighty antagonist, then all signs of the Krita, the Treta, and the Dwapara ages will disappear. When thou wilt behold in battle Arjuna checking Drona and Santanu's son and Kripa and King Suyodhana, and Jayadratha of Sindhu's race, all rushing fiercely to the encounter, then all signs of the Krita, the Treta and the Dwapara ages will disappear. When thou wilt behold in battle the two mighty sons of Madri, those heroic warriors, capable of breaking into pieces all hostile cars, agitating from the very moment when weapons will begin to clash, the army of Dhritarashtra's sons like a couple of infuriated elephants, then all signs of the Krita, the Treta and the Dwapara ages will disappear. Returning hence, O Karna, say unto Drona and Santanu's son and Kripa that the present month is a delightful one and that food, drink and fuel are abundant now. All plants and herbs are vigorous now, all trees full of fruits and flies there are none. The roads are free from mire and the waters are of agreeable taste. The weather is neither very hot nor very cold and is therefore highly pleasant. 7 days after will be the day of the new moon. Let the battle commence then, for that day, it hath been said, is presided over by Indra. Say also unto all the kings that have come for battling, that I will fully accomplish the desire cherished by them. Indeed, all the kings and princes that are obedient to the orders of Duryodhana, obtaining death by weapons, will attain to an excellent state. Thus ends the 142nd section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 143, Bhagavatyana Parva. Sanjaya said, hearing these beneficial and auspicious words of Kesava, Karna worshipped Krishna, the slayer of Madhu, and said these words, knowing everything, why dost thou yet, O thou of mighty arms, seek to beguile me? The destruction of the whole earth that is at hand hath for its cause Sakuni and myself and Dusasana and King Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra. Without doubt, O Krishna, a great and fierce battle is at hand between the Pandavas and the Kurus, which will cover the earth with bloody mire. All the kings and princes following the lead of Duryodhana, consumed by the fire of weapons, will proceed to the abode of Yama. Diverse frightful visions are seen, O slayer of Madhu, and many terrible portents and fierce disturbances also. All these omens, making the hairs of the spectators stand on their ends, indicate, O thou of Vrishni's race, the defeat of Dhritarashtra's son and the victory of Yudhishthira. That fierce planet of great effulgence, Sanachara, Saturn, is afflicting the constellation called Rohini in order to afflict greatly the creatures of the earth. The planet Angaraka, Mars, wheeling, O slayer of Madhu, towards the constellation Jyeshtha, approacheth towards Anuradha, indicating a great slaughter of friends. Without doubt, O Krishna, a terrible calamity approacheth the Kurus when specially, O thou of Vrishni's race, the planet Mahabharat afflicteth the constellation Chitra. The spot on the lunar disk hath changed its position, and Batu also approacheth towards the sun. Meteors are falling from the sky with loud noise and trembling motion. The elephants are sending forth frightful cries, while the steeds, O Madhava, are shedding tears without taking any delight in food and drink. They say, O thou of mighty arms, that on the appearance of these portents, a terrible calamity approacheth, productive of a great slaughter. O Kesava, amongst the steeds, elephants, and soldiers, in all the divisions of Duryodhana's army, it is seen, O slayer of Madhu, that while small is the food these take, ample is the excreta they evacuate. The wise have said that this is an indication of defeat. The elephants and steeds of the Pandavas, O Krishna, all seem to be cheerful, while all the animals wheel along their right. This also is an indication of their success. The same animals, O Kesava, pass by the left side of Duryodhana's army, while incorporeal voices are constantly heard over their heads. All this is an indication of defeat. All auspicious birds, such as peacocks, swans, cranes, chatakas, jivajivas and large flights of vakas follow the Pandavas, while vultures, kankas, hawks, rakshasas, wolves and bees in flights and herds follow the Kauravas. The drums in the army of Dhritarashtra's son yield no sounds, while those of the Pandavas yield sounds without being struck. The wells in the midst of Duryodhana's encampment send forth loud roars like those of huge bulls. All this is an indication of defeat. The gods are showering flesh and blood, O Madhava, on Duryodhana's soldiers. Vapory edifices of great effulgence with high walls, deep trenches and handsome porches, are suddenly appearing in the skies over the Kuru encampment. A black circle surrounding the solar disk appears to the view. Both twilights at sunrise and sunset indicate great terrors, the jackals yell hideously. All this is an indication of defeat. Diverse birds, each having but one wing, one eye, and one leg, utter terrible cries. All this, O slayer of Madhu, indicates defeat. Fierce birds with black wings and red legs hover over the Kuru encampment at nightfall. All this is an indication of defeat. The soldiers of Duryodhana betray hatred for Brahmanas first, and then for their preceptors, and then for all their affectionate servants. The eastern horizon of Duryodhana's encampment appeareth red, the southern, of the hue of weapons, and the western, O slayer of Madhu, of an earthy hue. All the quarters around Duryodhana's encampment seem, O Madhava, to be ablaze. In the appearance of all these portents, great is the danger that is indicated. I have, in a vision, O Achyuta, beheld Yudhishthira ascending with his brothers a palace supported by 1,000 columns. All of them appeared with white headgears and in white robes. And all of them appeared to me to be seated on white seats. In the midst of the same vision, thou, O Janardana, wast beheld by me to be employed in enveloping the blood-eyed earth with weapons. At the same time Yudhishthira, of immeasurable energy, ascending upon a heap of bones, was gladly eating buttered payasa of a golden cup. I further beheld Yudhishthira to be employed in swallowing the earth handed over to him by thee. This indicates that he will verily rule the earth. I beheld that tiger among men, Vrikodara of fierce deeds, standing on the summit, mace in hand and as if devouring this earth. This plainly indicates that he will slay all of us in fierce battle. It is known to me, Lord of the senses, that victory is there where righteousness is. I saw also Dhananjaya, the wielder of Gandiva, seated on the back of a white elephant with thee, O Lord of the senses, and blazing forth with great beauty. I have no doubt, O Krishna, that ye will slay in battle all the kings headed by Duryodhana. I saw Nakula and Sahadeva and that mighty car warrior Satyaki adorned with white bracelets, white cuirasses, white garlands and white robes. These tigers among men were seated upon excellent vehicles borne on the shoulders of men. And I saw that umbrellas were held over the heads of all the three. Amongst the soldiers of Dhritarashtra's son, these three, O Janardana, were beheld by me decked with white headgears. Know, O Kesava, that those three were Aswathaman, Kripa, and Kritavarman of Satyavata's race. All other kings, O Madhava, were seen by me to have blood-red headgears. I saw also, O thou of mighty arms, that those mighty car warriors Bhishma and Drona, ascending on a vehicle drawn by camels and by myself and Dhritarashtra's son, proceeded, O Lord, to the quarter, O Janardana, ruled by Agastya. This indicates that we shall soon have to proceed to Yama's abode. I have no doubt that myself and the other kings, indeed the entire assemblage of Kshatriyas, shall have to enter into the Gandiva fire. Krishna said, indeed, the destruction of the earth is at hand when my words, O Karna, do not become acceptable to thy heart. O sire, when the destruction of all creatures approacheth, wrong assuming the semblance of right leaveth not the heart. Karna said, if, O Krishna, we come out of this great battle that will be so destructive of heroic Kshatriyas, with life, then, O thou of mighty arms, may we meet here again. Otherwise, O Krishna, we shall certainly meet in heaven. O sinless one, it seemeth to me now that there only it is possible for us to meet. Sanjaya said, having spoken these words, Karna closely pressed Madhava to his bosom. Dismissed by Kesava, he then descended from the car. And riding on his own car decked with gold, Radha's son, greatly dejected, came back with us. Thus ends the 143rd section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 144, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, upon the failure of Krishna's solicitations for peace, and after he had started for the Pandavas from the Kurus, Kshatriya approached Pritha and said these words slowly in grief. O mother of living children, thou knowest that my inclination is always for peace, and although I cry myself hoarse, yet Suyodhana doth not accept my words. King Yudhishthira, having the Chedis, the Panchalas, and the Kekayas, Bhima and Arjuna, Krishna, Yuyudhana and the twins for his allies, stayeth yet at Upaplavya, and from affection for kinsmen, looketh up to righteousness only like a weak man, though he is possessed of great strength. King Dhritarashtra here, though old in years, doth not affect peace, and intoxicated with pride of children, treadeth a sinful path. In consequence of the wickedness of Jayadratha and Karna and Dusasana and Suvala's son, intestine dissensions will break out. They that behave unrighteously towards him that is righteous, verily that sin of theirs soon produceth its consequences. Who is there that will not be filled with sorrow at the sight of the Kurus persecuting righteousness in this way? When Kesava returneth without being able to bring about peace, the Pandavas will certainly address themselves for battle. Thereupon, the sin of the Kurus will lead to a destruction of heroes. Reflecting on all this, I do not get sleep by day or by night. Hearing these words uttered by Vidura, who always wished her sons the accomplishment of their objects, Kunti began to sigh heavily, afflicted with grief, and began to think within herself, "Fie to wealth, for the sake of which this great slaughter of kinsmen is about to take place. Indeed, in this war they that are friends will sustain defeat. What can be a greater grief than this, that the Pandavas, the Chedis, the Panchalas and the Yadavas, assembled together will fight with the Bharatas? Verily, I behold demerit in war. On the other hand, if we do not fight, poverty and humiliation would be ours. As regards the person that is poor, even death is beneficial to him. On the other hand, the extermination of one's kinsmen is not victory. As I reflect on this, my heart swelleth with sorrow. The grandsire Bhishma, the son of Santanu, the preceptor Drona, who is the foremost of warriors, and Karna, having embraced Duryodhana's side, enhance my fears. The preceptor Drona, it seemeth to me, will never fight willingly against his pupils. As regards the grandsire, why will he not show some affection for the Pandavas? There is only this sinful Karna then, of deluded understanding and ever following the deluded lead of the wicked Duryodhana, that hateth the Pandavas. Obstinately pursuing that which injureth the Pandavas, this Karna is again very powerful. It is this which burneth me at present. Proceeding to gratify him, I will today disclose the truth and seek to draw his heart towards the Pandavas. Pleased with me, while I was living in the inner apartments of the palace of my father Kuntibhoja, the holy Durvasa gave me a boon in the form of an invocation consisting of mantras. Long reflecting with a trembling heart on the strength or weakness of those mantras and the power also of the Brahmana's words, and in consequence also of my disposition as a woman, and my nature as a girl of unripe years, deliberating repeatedly and while guarded by a confidential nurse and surrounded by my waiting maids, and thinking also of how not to incur any reproach, how to maintain the honor of my father, and how I myself might have an accession of good fortune without being guilty of any transgression, I at last remembered that Brahmana and bowed to him, and having obtained those mantras, from excess of curiosity and from folly, I summoned, during my maidenhood, the god Surya. He therefore, who was held in my womb during my maidenhood, why should he not obey my words, that are certainly acceptable and beneficial to his brothers? And reflecting in this strain, Kunti formed an excellent resolution. And having formed that resolution, she went to the sacred stream called after Bhagiratha. And having reached the banks of Ganga, Pritha heard the chanting of the Vedic hymns by her son, endued with great kindness and firmly devoted to truth. And as Karna stood with face directed to the east and arms upraised, then helpless Kunti, for the sake of her interest, stayed behind him, awaiting the completion of prayers. And the lady of Vrishni's race, that wife of Kuru's house, afflicted by the heat of the sun, began to look like a faded garland of lotuses. And at last she stood in the shade afforded by the upper garments of Karna. And Karna, of regulated voice, said his prayers until his back became heated by the rays of the sun. Then turning behind, he beheld Kunti and was filled with surprise. And saluting her in proper form and with joined palms, that foremost of virtuous persons, endued with great energy and pride, Vis, Vrisha, the son of Vikatna, bowed to her and said the following words. Thus ends the 144th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 145, Bhagavatyana Parva. Karna said, I am Karna, son of Radha and Adhiratha. For what, O lady, hast thou come here? Tell me what I am to do for thee. Kunti said, Thou art Kunti's son and not Radha's. Nor is Adhiratha thy father. Thou, O Karna, art not born in the Sutha order. Believe what I say. Thou wert brought forth by me while a maiden. I held thee first in my womb. O son, thou wert born in the palace of Kuntiraja. O Karna, that divine Surya who blazeth forth in light and maketh everything visible, O foremost of all wielders of weapons, begat thee upon me. O irresistible one, thou, O son, wert brought forth by me in my father's abode, decked with natural earrings and accoutred in a natural coat of mail and blazing forth in beauty. That thou, without knowing thy brothers, shouldst therefore from ignorance wait upon Dhritarashtra's son, is not proper. It is improper in thee especially, O son. The gratification of one's father and one's mother, who is the sole displayer of affection for her child, hath, O son, in the matter of ascertaining the duties of men, been declared to be the highest of all duties. Acquired formerly by Arjuna, the prosperity of Yudhishthira hath from avarice been wrested by wicked persons. Snatching it back from Dhritarashtra's sons, do thou enjoy that prosperity. Let the Kurus behold today the union of Karna and Arjuna. Beholding thee and thy brother united together in bonds of brotherly love, let those wicked persons bow down unto ye. Let Karna and Arjuna be named in the same breath as Rama and Janardana. If you two are united together, what cannot be accomplished in the world? O Karna, surrounded by thy brothers, thou wilt without doubt blaze forth like Brahma himself surrounded by the gods on the platform of a great sacrifice. Endued with every virtue, thou art the first of all rare relations. Let not the epithet Sutha's son attach to thee. Thou art a Partha, endued with great energy. Thus ends the 145th section in the Bhagavat-yana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 146, Bhagavat-yana Parva. Vaisampayana said, after Kunti had said this, Karna heard an affectionate voice issued out of the solar circle. Coming from a great distance, that voice was uttered by Surya himself with paternal affection. And it said, the words said by Pritha are true. O Karna, act according to the words of thy mother. O tiger among men, great good will result to thee if thou fully followest those words. Vaisampayana continued, though thus addressed by his mother and by also his father Surya himself, Karna's heart did not yet waver, for he was firmly devoted to truth. And he said, O Kshatriya lady, I cannot admit what thou hast said, viz., that obedience to thy commands constituted in my case the highest of my duties. O mother, I was abandoned by thee as soon as I was born. This great injury, involving risk to life itself, that thou didst me, hath been destructive of my achievements and fame. If indeed I am a Kshatriya, I have for thee been deprived of all the rights of a Kshatriya. What enemy would have done me a greater injury? Without showing me mercy, when thou shouldst have shown it, and having kept me divested of all the rights that are obligatory in consequence of the order of my birth, thou wouldst however lay thy command on me today. Thou hadst never before sought my good as some other should. Thou addressest me today however, desiring to do good to thyself. Who is there that would not be afraid of Dhananjaya having Krishna with him for the driver of his car? If therefore I go today unto the Parthas, who is there that would not regard me as doing so from fright? Hitherto, nobody knew me to be their brother. If giving out on the eve of battle that I am their brother, I go to the Pandavas, what would all the Kshatriyas say? Furnished with every object of desire and worshipped by them with a view to make me happy, how can I render that friendship of Dhritarashtra's sons utterly futile? Having provoked hostilities with others, They always wait on me respectfully and always bow down to me, as the Vasus bow down to Vasava. They think that, aided by my might, they are capable of encountering the foe. How can I then frustrate that cherished hope of theirs? With me as their boat, they desire to cross the impassable ocean of battle. How can I then abandon them that are desirous of crossing that ocean which hath no other ferry? This is the time when all those have been supported by Dhritarashtra's sons should exert themselves for their masters. I shall certainly act for them, reckless of even my life. Those sinful men of unsteady heart who, well-fed and well-furnished with every necessary by their masters, undo the benefit received by them when the time cometh for paying back, are thieves of their masters' cakes, have neither this nor the other world for them. I will not speak deceitfully unto thee. For the sake of Dhritarashtra's son, I shall fight against thy sons to the best of my strength and might. I must not however abandon kindness and the conduct that becometh the good. Thy words therefore, however beneficial, cannot be obeyed by me now. This, thy solicitation to me will not yet be fruitless. Except Arjuna, thy other sons, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and the twins, though capable of being withstood by me in fight and capable also of being slain, shall not yet be slain by me. It is with Arjuna alone, among all the combatants of Yudhishthira, that I will fight. Slaying Arjuna in battle, I shall achieve great merit, or slain by Savyaschin I shall be covered with glory. O famous lady, the number of thy sons will never be less than 5. 5 it will always be, either with me, or with Arjuna, and myself slain. Hearing these words of Karna, Kunti, who was trembling with grief, embraced her son who was unmoved in consequence of his fortitude and said, Indeed, O Karna, even if what thou sayest seemeth to be possible, the Kauravas will certainly be exterminated. Destiny is all. Thou hast however, O grinder of force, granted to 4 of thy brothers the pledge of safety. Let that pledge be borne in thy remembrance at the time of shooting of weapons in battle. And having told all this, Pritha also addressed Karna saying, Blessed be thou, and let health be thine. And Karna replied unto her saying, Be it so. And they then left the spot, wending in different directions. Thus ends the 146th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 147, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vaisampayana said, coming back to Upaplavya from Hastinapura, that chastiser of force Kesava, represented unto the Pandavas all that had happened and conferring with them for a long space of time and holding repeated consultations, Sori went to his own quarters for rest. And dismissing all the kings with Virata and others at their heads, the 5 brothers the Pandavas, when the sun had set, said their evening prayers. And with hearts ever fixed on Krishna they began to think of him. And at last, bringing Krishna of the Saras race into their midst, they began to deliberate again about what they should do. And Yudhishthira said, O thou of eyes like lotus petals, it behoveth thee to tell us all that thou saidst unto Dhritarashtra's son in the assembly of the Kurus, having gone to Nagapura. Vasudeva said, having gone to Nagapura, I addressed Dhritarashtra's son in the assembly such words as were true, reasonable, and beneficial. That wicked-minded fellow did not however accept them. Yudhishthira said, when Duryodhana desired to tread along the wrong path, what did the aged Guru grandsire say, O Hrishikesh, unto that vindictive prince? What also did the highly blessed preceptor, the son of Bharadvaja, say? And what did his parents Dhritarashtra and Gandhari say? What did our junior father Kshatri, who is the foremost of all persons conversant with virtue and who is always afflicted with sorrow on account of ourselves, whom he regards as his sons, say unto Dhritarashtra's son? What also did all the kings who sat in that assembly say? O Janardana, say it all unto us exactly as it happened. Thou hast already told us all the disagreeable words that the Kuru chiefs Bhishma and Dhritarashtra and others in that assembly of the Kurus said unto the wicked Duryodhana, who is overwhelmed with lust and covetousness and who regardeth himself wise. Those words, however, O Kesava, have flitted away from my memory. O Govinda, I desire to hear, O Lord, all those words again. Act thou in such a way that the opportunity may not pass away. Thou, O Krishna, art our refuge, thou art our Lord, thou art our guide. Vasudeva said, Hear, O King, the words that were addressed to King Suryodhana in the midst of the assembly of the Kurus, and O King of Kings, bear them in thy mind. After my words were ended, Dhritarashtra's son laughed aloud. Highly incensed at this, Bhishma then said, Hear, O Duryodhana, what I say for the preservation of our race, and having heard it, O tiger among kings, do what is beneficial to thy own house. O sire, O king, my father Santanu was widely known in the world. I was at first his only son. A desire sprung up in his heart as to how he might obtain a second son, for the wise say that an only son is no son. Let not my race be extinct, may my fame be spread, even this was his desire. Knowing this to have been his desire, I procured Kali to become my mother, having myself made a promise highly difficult to observe, for the sake of my father as also for the sake of our race. How in consequence of that promise I could not be king and have drawn up my vital seed, are of course well known to thee. I do not grieve for that. Observing that vow of mine, behold, I am living in happiness and joy. In her, O king, was born my younger brother, that mighty armed and handsome supporter of Kuru's race, viz. Vichitravirya of virtuous soul. After my father's ascension to heaven, I installed Vichitravirya as ruler of the kingdom that was mine, while I placed myself under him as a servant of his. O King of Kings, I then brought him suitable wives, having vanquished many assembled monarchs. Thou hast heard of it often. Some time after, I was engaged in a single combat with the great Rama. From fear of Rama, my brother fled, the more so as his subjects deserted him. During this period, he became very much attached to his wives and accordingly had an attack of phthisis. Upon his death there was anarchy in the kingdom, and the chief of the gods poured not a drop of rain on the realm. The subjects then, afflicted by fear of hunger, hastened to me and said, Thy subjects are on the point of being exterminated. Be thou our king for the sake of our good. Dispel this drought. Blessed be thou, O perpetuator of Santanu's race. Thy subjects are being greatly afflicted by severe and frightful maladies. Very few of them are still alive. It behoveth thee, son of Ganga, to save them. Dispel these tortures. O hero, cherish thy subjects righteously. When thou art alive, let not the kingdom go to destruction. Hearing these words of theirs uttered in a weeping voice, my heart was undisturbed. Remembering the behavior of good, I desire to maintain my vow. Then, O king, the citizens, my auspicious mother Kali herself, our servants, the priests and the preceptors of our house and many Brahmanas of great learning, all afflicted with great woe, solicited me to occupy the throne. And they said, When thou art alive, shall the kingdom ruled by Prathipa of old go to ruin? O thou of magnanimous heart, be thou the king for our good. Thus addressed by them, I joined my hands together and myself filled with grief and greatly afflicted I represented to them the vow I had made from filial respect. I repeatedly informed them that for the sake of our race, I had vowed to live with vital seed drawn up and forswearing the throne. It was especially for my mother again that I did so. I therefore begged them not to put me to the yoke. I again joined my hands and conciliated my mother, saying, O mother, begot by Santanu and being a member of Kuru's race, I cannot falsify my promise. I repeatedly told her this. And O king, I said further, it is for thee especially, O mother, that I took this vow. I am verily thy servant and slave, O mother, thou that art distinguished for parental affection. Having begged my mother and the people thus, I then solicited the great sage Vyasa for begetting children upon the wives of my brother. Indeed, O king, both myself and my mother gratified that rishi. At last, O king, the rishi granted our prayers in the matter of the children, and he begot 3 sons in all, O best of Bharata's race. Thy father was born blind, and in consequence of this congenital defect of a sense, he could not become king. The high-souled and celebrated Pandu became king. And when Pandu became king, his sons must obtain their paternal inheritance. O sire, do not quarrel, give them half the kingdom. When I am alive, what other man is competent to reign? Do not disregard my words. I only wish that there should be peace amongst you. O sire, O king, I make no distinction between thee and them, but love all of you equally. What I have said unto thee represents also the opinion of thy father, of Gandhari, and also of Vidura. The words of those that are old should always be listened to. Do not disregard these words of mine. Do not destroy all thou hast and the earth also. Thus ends the 147th section in the Bhagavat-yana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 148, Bhagavat-yana Parva. Vasudeva said, after Bhishma had said these words, Drona, always competent to speak, then addressed Duryodhana in the midst of the assembled monarchs and said these words that are beneficial to thee. And he said, O sire, as Pratipa's son, Santanu was devoted to the welfare of his race, and as Devavrata, otherwise called Bhishma, was devoted to the welfare of his race, so was the royal Pandu, that king of the Kurus, who was firmly devoted to truth, who had his passions under control, who was virtuous, of excellent voice, and attentive to all duties. Though king by right, that perpetuator of Kuru's race yet made over the sovereignty to his elder brother, Dhritarashtra, endued with great wisdom, and to his younger brother Kshatri Vidura. And placing this Dhritarashtra of unfading glory on the throne, that royal son of Kuru's race went to the woods with his 2 wives. And that tiger among men, Vidura, with great humility, placing himself in subjection to Dhritarashtra, began to wait on him like a slave, fanning him with the branch of a tender palm. And all the subjects then, O sire, duly tendered their submission to King Dhritarashtra just as they had done to King Pandu himself. And having made over the kingdom to Dhritarashtra and Vidura, that conqueror of hostile cities, Pandu, wandered over the whole earth. Always devoted to truth, Vidura then took charge of the finances, gifts, superintendence of the servants of the state and the feeding of all, while that conqueror of hostile cities, Bhishma, of mighty energy, supervised the making of war and peace and the necessity of making or withholding gifts to kings. When King Dhritarashtra of great strength was on the throne, the high-souled Vidura was near him. Born in Dhritarashtra's race, how dost thou venture to bring about a disunion in thy family? Uniting with thy brothers, the Pandavas, enjoy all objects of enjoyment. O king, I do not say this to you from cowardice, nor for the sake of wealth. I am enjoying the wealth that Bhishma gave me and not thou, O best of kings. I do not desire, O king, to have from thee my means of sustenance. Where Bhishma is, there Drona must be. Do what Bhishma hath told thee. O grinder of foes, give unto the sons of Pandu half the kingdom. O sire, I acted as their preceptor as much as thine. Indeed, even as Saswathaman is to me, so is Arjuna of white steeds. What use is there of much declamation? Victory is there where righteousness is. Vasudeva continued, After Drona, of immeasurable energy, had said this, the virtuous Vidura, then O king, who is devoted to truth, said these words, turning towards his uncle Bhishma and looking at his face. And Vidura said, O Devavrata, attend to the words I speak. This race of Kuru, when it became extinct, was revived by thee. Is it for this that thou art indifferent to my lamentations now? In this our race, its stain is this Duryodhana, whose inclinations are followed by thee, although he is enslaved by avarice and is wicked and ungrateful and deprived of his senses by lust. The Kurus will certainly be a consequence of the acts of that Duryodhana who transgresseth the command of his father, observant of virtue and profit. O great king, act thou so that the Kurus may not perish. Like a painter producing a picture, it was thou, O king, who hadst caused me and Dhritarashtra to spring into life. The Creator, having created creatures, destroys them again. Do not act like him. Seeing before thy very eyes this extinction of thy race, be not indifferent to it. If however thy understanding is gone in consequence of the universal slaughter that is at hand, go then to the woods, taking me and Dhritarashtra with thee. Otherwise, binding this very day wicked Duryodhana that hath deceit for his wisdom, rule this kingdom with the sons of Pandu guarding it around. Relent, O tiger among kings. A great slaughter of the Pandavas, the Kurus, and of other kings of immeasurable energy is before us. Having said this, Vidura ceased, his heart overflowing with sorrow. And reflecting on the matter, he began to draw repeated sighs. Then the daughter of King Suvala, alarmed at the prospect of the destruction of a whole race, said from wrath these words, fraught with virtue and profit, to cruel Duryodhana of wicked heart, in the presence of the assembled monarchs. Let all the kings present in this royal assembly and let the regenerate rishis that form the other members of this conclave listen to me as I proclaim the guilt of thy sinful self, backed by all thy counsellors. The kingdom of the Kurus is enjoyable in due order of succession. Even this hath always been the custom of our race. Of sinful soul and exceedingly wicked in acts, thou seekest the destruction of the Kuru kingdom by thy unrighteousness. Wise Dhritarashtra is in possession of the kingdom, having Vidura of great foresight under him as his adviser. Passing over these two, why, O Duryodhana, dost thou from delusion covet the sovereignty now? Even the high-souled king and Kshatri, when Bhishma is alive, should both be subordinate to him. Indeed, this foremost of men, this offspring of Ganga, the high-souled Bhishma, in consequence of his righteousness doth not desire the sovereignty. It is for this reason that this invincible kingdom became Pandu's. His sons therefore are masters today and no other. This extensive kingdom, then by paternal right belongeth to the Pandavas and their sons and grandsons in due order. Observing the customs of our race and the rule with respect to our kingdom, we all fully accomplish that which this high-souled and wise chief of the Kurus, Devavrata, firmly adhering to truth saith. Let this king Dhritarashtra and Vidura also, at the command of Bhishma of great woes, proclaim the same thing. Even that is an act that should be done by those that are well-wishers of this race. Keeping virtue in front, let Yudhishthira, the son of Dharma, guided by King Dhritarashtra and urged by Santanu's son, rule for many long years this kingdom of the Kurus lawfully obtainable by him. Thus ends the 148th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 149, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vasudeva said, after Gandhari had said this, that ruler of men, Dhritarashtra then said these words to Duryodhana in the midst of the assembled monarchs, O Duryodhana, listen, O son, to what I say, and blessed be thou, do that if thou hast any respect for thy father. The lord of creatures, Soma, was the original progenitor of the Kuru race. Sixth in descent from Soma was Yayati, the son of Nahusha. Yayati had 5 best of royal sages as his sons. Amongst them Lord Yadu of mighty energy was the eldest born. Younger to Yadu was Puru who, as our progenitor, brought forth by Sarmistha, the daughter of Vrishapavan. Yadu, best of the Bharatas, was born of Devayani and therefore, O sire, was the daughter's son of Sukra, otherwise called Kavya, of immeasurable energy. Endued with great strength and prowess, that progenitor of the Yadavas, filled with pride and possessed of wicked understanding, humiliated all the Kshatriyas. Intoxicated with pride of strength, he obeyed not the injunctions of his father. Invincible in battle, he insulted his father and brother. On this earth girt on 4 sides by the sea, Yadu became all-powerful and reducing all to subjection, he established himself in this city called after the elephant. His father Yayati, the son of Nahusha, enraged with him, cursed that son of his and O son of Gandhari, even expelled him from the kingdom. Angry, Yayati also cursed those brothers of Yadu who were obedient to that eldest brother of theirs, who was so proud of his strength. And having cursed his sons, that best of kings placed on his throne his youngest son Puru who was docile and obedient to him. Thus even the eldest son may be passed over and deprived of the kingdom, and younger sons may, in consequence of their respectful behavior to the aged, obtain the kingdom. So also, conversant with every virtue, there was my father's grandfather, King Pratipa, who was celebrated over the 3 worlds. Unto that lion among king, who ruled his kingdom virtuously, were born 3 sons of great fame and resembling 3 gods. Of them, Devapi was the eldest, Valika the next, and Santanu of great intelligence who, O sire, was my grandfather, was the youngest. Devapi, endued with great energy, was virtuous, truthful in speech, and ever engaged in waiting upon his father. But that best of kings had a skin disease. Popular with both the citizens and the subjects of the provinces, respected by the good, and dearly loved by the young and the old, Devapi was liberal, firmly adhering to truth, engaged in the good of all creatures and obedient to the instructions of his father, as also of the Brahmanas. He was dearly loved by his brother Valika, as also the high-souled Santanu. Great indeed was the brotherly love that prevailed between him and his high-souled brothers. In course of time the old and best of kings, Pratipa, caused all preparations to be made according to the scriptures for the installation of Devapi on the throne. Indeed, the Lord Pratipa caused every auspicious preparation. The installation of Devapi, however, was forbidden by the Brahmanas and all aged persons amongst the citizens, and the inhabitants of the provinces. Hearing that the installation of his son was forbidden, the voice of the old king became choked with tears and he began to grieve for his son. Thus, though Devapi was liberal, virtuous, devoted to truth, and loved by the subjects, yet in consequence of his skin disease, he was excluded from his inheritance. The gods do not approve of a king that is defective of a limb. Thinking of this, those bulls among Brahmanas forbade King Pratipa to install his eldest son. Devapi then, who was defective of one limb, beholding the king his father prevented from installing him on the throne and filled with sorrow on his account, retired into the woods. As regards Valika, abandoning his paternal kingdom he dwelt with his maternal uncle. Abandoning his father and brother, he obtained the highly wealthy kingdom of his maternal grandfather. With Valika's permission, O Prince, Santanu of worldwide fame, on the death of his father Pratipa, became king and ruled the kingdom. In this way also, O Bharata, though I am the eldest, yet being defective of a limb, I was excluded from the kingdom by intelligent Pandu, no doubt, after much reflection. And Pandu himself, though younger to me in age, obtained the kingdom and became king. At his death, O chastiser of foes, that kingdom must pass to his sons. When I could not obtain the kingdom, how canst thou cover it? Thou art not the son of a king and therefore hast no right to this kingdom. Thou however desirest to appropriate the property of others. High-souled Yudhishthira is the son of a king. This kingdom is lawfully his. Of magnanimous soul, even he is the ruler and lord of this race of Kuru. He is devoted to truth, of clear perception, obedient to the counsels of friends, honest, loved by the subjects, kind to all well-wishers, master of his passions, and the chastiser of all that are not good. Forgiveness, renunciation, self-control, knowledge of the scriptures, mercy to all creatures, competence to rule according to the dictates of virtue, all these attributes of royalty exist in Yudhishthira. Thou art not the son of a king, and art always sinfully inclined towards thy relatives. O wretch, how canst thou succeed in appropriating this kingdom that lawfully belongeth to others? Dispelling this delusion, give half the kingdom with a share of the animals and other possessions. Then, O king, mayest thou hope to live for some time with thy younger brothers. Thus ends the 149th section in the Bhagavatyana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. Section 150, Bhagavatyana Parva. Vasudeva said, though thus addressed by Bhishma and Drona and Vidura and Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, that wicked wight could not yet be brought to his senses. On the other hand, the wicked Duryodhana, disregarding them all, rose and left the assembly with eyes red in anger. And all the kings invited by him, prepared to lay down their lives, followed him behind. King Duryodhana then repeatedly ordered those wicked-hearted rulers, saying, Today constellation Pushya is ascendant. March ye this very day to Kurukshetra. Impelled by fate, those monarchs then with their soldiers gladly set out, making Bhishma their generalissimo. 11 Akshahinis of troops have been, O king, assembled for the Kauravas. At the head of that host, shineth Bhishma with the device of the Palmyra on the banner of his car. In view therefore of what hath happened, do now, O monarch, that which seemeth to be proper. I have told thee, O king, everything that, O Bharata, was said by Bhishma, Drona, Vidura, Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, in my presence. The arts beginning with conciliation were all, O king, employed by me from desire of establishing brotherly feelings between yourselves and your cousins, for the preservation of this race and for the growth and prosperity of the earth's population. When conciliation failed, I employed the art of producing dissensions and mentioned, ye Pandavas, all your ordinary and extraordinary feats. Indeed, when Suyodhana showed no respect for the conciliatory words I spoke, I caused all the kings to be assembled together and endeavored to produce dissension amongst them. Extraordinary and awful and terrible and superhuman indications, O Bharata, were then manifested by me. O Lord, rebuking all the kings, making a straw of Suyodhana, terrifying Radha's son and repeatedly censuring Subala's son for the gambling match of Dhritarashtra's sons, and once again endeavoring to disunite all the kings by means of both words and intrigues, I again had recourse to conciliation. For the unity of Kuru's race and in view of the special requirements of the business at hand, I spoke also of gift. Indeed, I said, those heroes, the sons of Pandu, sacrificing their pride, will live in dependence on Dhritarashtra, Bhishma and Vidura. Let the kingdom be given to thee. Let them have no power. Let it all be as the king Dhritarashtra, as Ganga's son Bhishma and as Vidura say, for thy good. Let the kingdom be thine. Relinquish but 5 villages to the Pandavas. O best of kings, without doubt they deserve to be supported by thy father. Though addressed thus, that wicked soul did not still give you your share. I therefore see that chastisement and nothing else is now the means that should be employed against those sinful persons. Indeed, all those kings have already marched to Kurukshetra. I have now told thee everything that had happened in the assembly of the Kurus. They will not, O son of Pandu, give thee thy kingdom without battle. With death waiting before them, they have all become the cause of a universal destruction. Thus ends the 158th section in the Bhagavat-yana Parva of the Udyoga Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.